Talk to us about excellence in the ordinary, what it means to you.
Well, when you told me we were going to talk about this, I think you got to go back to humble beginnings and how we started, because I'm sure people listening have maybe a small business or thinking about starting. What we learned early was it wasn't going to be one big thing that was going to make us successful. I think about when we started syndicating the radio show, we always if we could get the Ramsey show on in New York City, or if we could get Dave on the Oprah show, or what we just did recently, if we could get an award-winning documentary out in the nation, we will make it. And what we realized is those things didn't just make us go from, 2 to 10. It's not just one big splash. And we went into those things thinking, this is it. But it's more about the things in between those big things. And what I mean by that, it's the small things: coming in on time, actually working when you're at work, taking care of the customer by calling them back. Just excellence in the ordinary, small day-to-day things. But it wasn't just about the success part. It was also, we realized that it wasn't going to probably be just one mistake or one missed thing that was going to make us fail either. Dave calls it death by 1,000 cuts. So it's a bunch of little things, not being excellent over the little things over time. They say it's not just one piece of cake that's going to make you fat. You just keep eating the cake week by week by week, and all of a sudden I wake up, I'm fat. So both the success side and the failure side, it's just being on top of those small little things day to day that really matter.
Mm. It's the things that may seem trivial or seem like a waste of time.
That's right.
But that's the stuff that grows your character. That's the stuff that ends up making a big impact over a long period of time.
And we found if you don't do those things with excellence and you don't focus like that, you don't get the opportunity for the big things.
Yeah. So take us back to the older days when it was a much smaller team. What are a few examples of things that you've seen or maybe that you did back in those early days, and how that's led to here we are today, over 1,000 team members and hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue? Yeah,
some of those smaller things, or maybe not real small, just the things you just had to do every day that got us to where we are today. I think back of, when Dave and I started out, we had to drive 40 miles round trip just to go to a little closet that had the equipment to be able to do a radio show for 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And the reason we were willing to do that is because we wasn't going to build our own thing because we didn't have the money. So we had to stay with our debt-free principles every single day until we saved up in about 3 years from that time and built, we're in a little closet. We just got a little bigger closet of our own, but we did it the right way. It was calling stations in the early days when no one had a clue who Dave Ramsey is. He was no household name then. No one had any idea what this radio show was. And it was consistently getting on the phone, cold calling these stations and going, hey, will you take the show? Begging these, trust me, it's going to help your people. But they had no clue who we were. But it's that little stuff we had to do every day that wasn't the fun. I also think of George back in the day when there's about, 10 to 20 of us. We'd have little phones in our cube area, and a voice would come on and say, all men to shipping. And what that was we dropped whatever we were doing because a truck was pulling up with our books or some product from a small live event we did. And it didn't matter if you were in shipping. We didn't have a shipping department then. It didn't matter what your job was. But part of those little small things starting out was, okay, we got to go down and give a hand and unload that truck. Now we have a whole shipping department, a big old dock out here with semis pull up, and a team to do that. So when it happens, me and you aren't leaving what we're doing to go do it, but we would not have that today if it wasn't for those doing the small things and being willing to do that stuff early. One more example was that just came to me as live events. When we started doing live events, one of our first markets was this Jackson, Tennessee, and it was in a small hotel, little conference room, and it was a big deal. We were going on the road to Jackson. We didn't have a live events department. Dave was going to go there to speak, and I drove a van, and I was a producer. I had a guy with me that did another whole job, and we worked the tables while we were there, like selling the books. But that was the small things it took to get to where we are today, where we have teams doing that and a whole live event team and all that. So it was pretty cool. Side note, when we were at that hotel, me and Dave were in the parking lot right after the event. There's probably, I don't know, maybe 50, 67 people there. We looked across the street at the arena there in Jackson. We said one day we're going to be in there. And literally 3 years later, just a side note, Dave was on that stage.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yep.
Man, I love hearing these stories. It's inspiring. And for, all of our listeners, they're going, oh, this is where I am today. And if I can just be excellent in the ordinary, be faithful in those little things,
That's right.
over time, it's going to get you there. But in the moment, it can feel like this is not what's going to be it.
Mundane,
This is not
nuance.
it.
Yep, you're right.
And Dave reminds us in staff meeting, it feels like about every Monday, that, hey, if you're writing that piece of code, you're firing off that email, you're making that phone call, that is the backbone of this place.
That's
It's
right.
not the flashy book launches and the shows and the stuff, being in front of the camera.
You're right.
It's those people who create the impact.
That's right.
And so it's a great reminder for our leaders listening that you will get there, but it starts with this.
Yep.
It starts with being faithful in the little things, managing what God's given you really well, focusing on your KRA. Even if you go, that's not what I want to be doing, you have to really crush the KRA if you want to go to that next thing.
So true.
That's good. So let's talk about present day. How does this play out currently with our culture and everything we've built here at Ramsey?
Well, it's what we're calling core values. This is one of our core values, like you set up this interview. And if you work at Ramsey, you hear the word core value, you know what that means. That means this is what the foundation is. This is like
the DNA of this place.
is what we do.
It's not aspirational.
That's right. So much so, and you know this, George, that Dave on staff meeting Mondays will still hit these core values or teach from them. It's constantly, you could be here for 26 years, you could be here for 26 minutes, and you're going to hear the CEO from the stage hitting these core values constantly. You're going to hear leaders in your department sharing that and saying, this is our filter, this is how we do it. And it comes top down. And you can even come visit us at Ramsey Solutions if you're in Franklin, Tennessee, and come in our building. Guess what? They're on the walls. You go on the staircase. They're on the walls in there. You get off an elevator. It's in front of your face. So it plays out to be a core value, which each business in return has that posture and is held to that. And at the end of the day, it's doing the right thing the right way every day.